anybody's out there, they'll see it after the ads roll. But this will start recording. It'll record it on the Twitch channel. I don't think we're gonna do a YouTube on this one, but I could be wrong.
Right.
But this is supposed to be the super informal. Hey everybody, how you doing?
Yeah. All our brain cells have fled.
Oh my God, I am more toasted than I have been on any of the other previous ones. I'm a wreck. 66 minutes to go. What's our current value? 156, 140. We could still make it. We could still get that very last one at the last minute. It's gonna be a nail biter. It's funny how these things work out. Like you try to plan it to be like exactly this. Like it'll be perfect if it hits it. Like right in those last couple minutes, like that's the epic. Like, oh, we couldn't have planned it better, and it's all pure luck. Pure luck. Let's see here. Anybody out there? And we're live. Okay. Actually, I'll just post that on the... I'll post that on the thing, and we're live. See if anybody joins us. Nighthawk put in a comment, is it possible to update the what's in the box graphic? Yeah! I'll type out this response, the posters I kind of meant to put on there, like I could do that, but that's more graphic finagling than my mind is capable of at this point. Like it's actually not that hard, but...
You go, hey, if we did the stretch goal a week ago, my brain could have handled it, but now...
Well, I mean, we actually got them a few days ago, and I was going to add them to the bottom of the graphic, but there's a couple problems with that. It's like, one, I mean, you do them in scale, so you've got like all your stuff, and then like another like half again, the size, posters, and it can look pretty cool, but it can also be a mess, and just the way it all graphically went together this time, kind of like it better without, even though technically they are in the box. Then the magic item deck, we don't have the prototype for the deck box yet, so I don't actually have an image to put in for that one. Like we could put in a placeholder, but I mean, Nighthawk's right. We should have that stuff on there. I just don't really have graphics for it. So, if it were earlier in the campaign, I'd stress about that. With an hour to go, it's like, And he actually mentioned the archetypes too, which it's funny. My mind inserted them because in all the previous ones, we do the GM screen, and then the 3 archetypes are just sort of folded below it. And I thought they were there this whole time, but now that I look at the image, they're not, and it's like, oh, whoops. We've been selling ourselves short. If we fall $5 short, that was it. It was I didn't put in the archetypes in the image. Damn it. Oh, there we go. We got some people live in there. Hey, you made it to the live chat. Cool. And Greg, go ahead and talk for a minute and make sure that our volume levels out there are as good as I think they are.
I'm pretty excited. We're in our final hour. How's the volume?
Sounds great to me. It won't be like our first prototype that I messed up so badly.
Yeah, where it sounded like I was, phoning it in from Siberia.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, it sounded great it sounded great to me, and I'm the platform that's streaming on OBS, so I'm like, cool, we're fine. And I couldn't see the chat as we were doing it, and finally someone was like, we can't hear Greg, and I'm like, I don't know, like anything I do to it, it's gonna ruin things. Then see the video later. I'm just like, oh, it came pre-ruined. I'm so sorry, Greg. Like, and what it was, what's interesting is, so the way you're supposed to do the OBS platforming is like you've got all the sound sources routed through a soundboard, and I had this window, the audio from it was the only source, and it was maxed, so it should have been fine. But what ended up happening was it was taking the audio from this plus the audio from my microphone, so I would always be double the volume of everything else. It's like, oh, okay. Could have been fixed in the day, but that's what, you live and learn. Hey out there, K-Wolf, LC Junkie. I got this huge list of questions from one of the updates. Yay! Wolfie68 says, they can actually hear you this time, Greg.
All right. I just took a vow of silence. That'll prove.
Oh, we were just saying that we're both way low on sleep. It's been a long Kickstarter. We've been working hard on it the whole time.
I'm excited though that when Cosmos Collide is out among the playtesters, and when that feedback comes out, then I'll fix it up and get it out to the backers.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm just excited that that's starting to roll in.
I am too. It's a really cool book. That's a really cool book. Yeah. That's so. Yeah, and I kind of like we've got a little bit of production time on this one to do it staged, where for everyone following along, I am now confident that the links are going to go out right after the Kickstarter closes. So up until 3 hours ago, I was like, is that going to work this time? It's going to work this time, so we're okay. Because we have personnel changes, and so like Eric would do the links before, and I was like, okay, great, I know that's going to happen. Now that we're working with international, it's like, well, like here's the files, but I don't know if Sebastian's got them set up yet, and all that, and until I've got those links, I'm not going to be able to send them. So he got it. Thank you, Sebastian. We're all set. We're ready to go.
You said you had a list of questions from the update. Do we want to start knocking those down?
Yeah, let's take a look at some of them. And I'll be looking at the chat room too, everyone. This is all super informal. We're bleary-eyed. I'd be drinking, but then I'd be totally out. People are saying, doesn't look like we'll make the maps. Yeah, 6,000's a touch much. Hey, you never know, everybody. I mean, the last hour, we could get some commits. It could happen. Could happen. And though I've been saying this whole time, we're not gonna unlock stretch goals in the Game On, the backer kit. If we're close, I might be able to convince people to do it. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. And people are noting, like, yeah, all it takes is one champion or royalty to do it. Pretty much. We had a champion. We had a full boat, but somebody had to pull out, which is unfortunate. So, and I also know, like, royalty. was going to be tough this year because we're literally days away from Gen Con when we wrap up. It's kind of like, hey, if you're going to be there anyway, think about it. You know? So, but timing is what it is. And that's why, before I get into the real questions, Greg, you can keep me on task because I'm going to be punchy, you know.
Yeah, well, I figure we're both punchy, but we'll try to cycle. You'll be high punchy, I'll be low punchy.
But that was, you know, people were talking about like comparing this one to the other Kickstarters, and there were so many factors going into this one that it's already wildly surpassed my, estimate of what it was going to do, and even our best estimates were like at the total maximum we could expect is the 180 number, and there's a bunch of factors that go into that. And we can be totally wrong. Like, we've been wrong on other ones too. So, you predict what you can, but
Well, the biggest difference is the logistics part is not included in this bid total, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
If you subtract that from the previous ones, you get a number that's
yeah, like 1,000 people with $30 worth of shipping and a lot of yeah, I mean, that's huge. This one just totally blew the doors off, and the fact that we're in euros instead of dollars. The majority of our backers are in North America. That can be a barrier to people. We weren't sure what effect that would have. Turns out, nothing. Yay. Okay, saying you're a little bit quiet, so I'm gonna crank your volume up even higher, Greg. We're gonna blow out eardrums. All right. But and then the other thing is we get a big boost from the Gen Con game backers, and we were so close to the Gen Con game this time. We're like, ooh, that's a tough sell. We might not get this one, and that's fine. Better to do it, like get it done, But yeah, so there were a lot of vectors, and also I was the least popular of the original Cosms. Not to soft sell it. So like we kind of expected, it could turn out like the Living Land, where people were interested to see what we changed, to see what we did with it, or they could be like, it's another fantasy game, whatever, and just move on. And we didn't know that. We didn't know which way that would go. So yeah, our numbers blow away everything that we expected. So thank you everyone for coming. That's one of the things that's so gratifying about being part of this, is that it's still so vital. Even 3 Kickstarters in, there's an expectation that it's going to go down like each time, because I'm the first to admit we're working on our marketing, but it's not that great. So our outreach is not that great. So to not be like crashing downwards, we have to be holding on to everyone that we've got and maybe picking up a few people here and there. And the fact that that's happening is extraordinary, because that's not a common trend,
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, people are doing the math and being like, oh yeah, we actually kind of made, would have made more than, all things being equal with shipping and all that. And it's like, yeah, it's true. Like, we're right up there.
Yeah.
We need to be more involved on KickTrack. So, and this can be my ignorance as a game designer rather than a professional Kickstarter. I always thought with KickTrack we use it for analytics, and there's some good analytics we can do with it. I never thought of it as an advertising or marketing platform though. So I'll call our people. Focus on the realm vials. A huge selling point for me. Yeah, Omar, so funny story about that. Like, I think we talked about this a little bit with Greg Nagler and Dominic Reisland, where they were frustrated with me because we had our initial outline breakdown, and we send out documents when we're designing stuff like here's the tone we're going for, here's this, and so like our bullet points were about the same as we did that, but after the first stuff came back, and I'm redlining it and just being like, oh, like this isn't right, and it took me a while to figure out what it was that I was reacting against. And what I reacted against, I realized like, oh wait, this is all really deep dive stuff into that cosm that we're not going to. Like the possibility wars here on Earth. Like, in the original, and this is all just like the original book, and it's like, oh, that's why it never hit for me. Like that was it. That it was all about the cosm and not the realm. So once we figured that out, like that put our feet back on the ground, and I realized like that's what I wanted from an Isle book was, well, tell me what's going on in England. Like I don't care what's going on in the kingdom of Oo in Lower Isle. I'm not there, right? I'm in England. I'm in Scandinavia. What's happening there? People tend to check out games trending on KickTrack. Yeah, and that's why we try to have that big day one, and there's a lot of magic. There's a lot of magic that happens. And Greg, please interrupt me. I'm just going to babble.
I'm just reading the questions on the update, so I'll be with you in a second.
You're getting ahead. Yeah. I've got them here on text too. Yeah. So they meet their hand. Yeah. Best decision ever, in my opinion. Reason I'll never. Yeah. And sorry. Here's how punchy I am. I'm going to be reading out loud. That's my ability to read silently has diminished over the the hours spent. So one of the things that's magical about Kickstarter is you want to have that really good first day, and if it's good enough, then you've got that spiky trend. The KickTrack will display, but also the Kickstarter themselves, they getting noticed by them and them becoming a project they love and putting on the first page. There's like all these little magical things that if you can't try to do it, like you can try, but you can't guarantee it. Like we can't say like, well, if only we'd spent money to be a project we love and be on the first page. It's like, well, no, you can't. You just have to catch that lightning in a bottle and grab people's attention. And if you do, then you've got a good position for the rest of the the weeks coming up, and that's going to generate you more revenue. It helps. Speaking of Gen Con, can we get a post about what's revealed the same day? So I will try. I'm not going to promise that one because Gen Con's crazy and connectivity and all that. That actually might be an update you post, Greg.
All right.
I'll leave that to you if you want to. Let's see here. Hoping to get one of the top tier. Oh yeah. So Tharkold, that's what I'm working on. Just like most of what I'm working on right now is all cleanup work on this wave. Like all the writing's done, but we've got a joke in design that the last 1% takes like 50% of the effort of the rest of the project. We're all in that last 1% now, but oh my god, that makes for some sleepless nights, trying to get it all like really done, getting that last 1% done. So most of my attention's on the last 1%, but some of it is laying the first outline steps and doing a bit of writing on Tharkold. And yeah, I'm excited. Tharkold's gonna be fun.
So I just saw one of the questions from the slew that Mr. Sleester posted, and he asked about after an org transforms, can they have their moment of crisis? And I answered in the affirmative in When Cosmos Collide. I have a Night Empire spy who transforms to Tharkold but then has his moment of crisis and becomes this odd hybrid. Oh,
yeah.
so, yes.
Yeah, exactly. In the core game, the moment of crisis is what makes a Storm Knight. Like that is your transformation. Now, but you can like transcendence is a little bit weird and different. Like we do use those two words sometimes inappropriately, interchangeably. I'm especially guilty of that. But they are two different mechanisms. And yeah, now that you've introduced these sort of other variations that like that and that can be part of that formula of the difference between a Storm Knight and one of these other types is like, yeah, there was no moment of crisis. There's engaging reality without like a moral moment, without core Earth saying, oh, you're a defender. It's like, oh, you got power, but you're not a defender. What are you?
Yeah.
Ooh, someone was born in the USSR. So I'm so sorry for how many things I'll botch. There will be a lot of attention, as much as I can, but also this is where other voices are important to us. Our playtesters, our editors, and Shane, who speaks Russian. Like I'll be talking to him a lot too, so he'll help me, not get it too horribly wrong. So let's see some of the top questions that we had posted before. Roughly, when do the big events in Sydney and Tharkold from the beta primer occur? I know it's year 1, but I'm trying to slot my master timeline together. So in my mind, the giant monster from Pan Pacifica attacks Sydney pretty much in the last month of year 1. Like that's one of those sort of watermark, like, oh, we're moving into year 2 moments. And for those of you that watched our Saver Dice game, we actually had Storm Knights present for that moment. People got to see a preview of some of the mechanics we're working on for the giant mutated infected things. And I'm actually thrilled. Like we've got this, like, I think, cool deep backstory on the infected and how they work. And somebody out there figured it out. Like they put the puzzle pieces together, and they're like, "Whoa, I wonder if it's this." And it's like, "It is." Good on. That's really cool. And then let's see. The Tharkold stuff happens a little earlier. It's probably about the 9th or 10th month, where Crenod stops being High Lord and we get into the Chaos Ball, and that will be something we'll deep dive into in the source book. And all I'll say, like I saw someone was very disappointed that we took Crenod out of the picture so early, and all spoilers I can say is like it might not be what it appears to be on the surface. One thing. And 2, we really want to establish that High Lords can go down. It's not necessarily about the High Lord, it's about the darkness device. And once a darkness device decides you're not it anymore, I mean, and Crod's, other than the Gaunt Man, like one of the most individually powerful beings. But if your darkness device bails on you at a critical moment, that's tough, right? That's like a Storm Knight when a Storm Knight disconnects and they can't soak, they're extremely vulnerable, and that's what can happen to a High Lord if there's a big disagreement there. And we really wanted to get into the fun, to me, of having these different factions in Darkhold. That, hey, there's a Deanna. I didn't know you'd be able to join since you were. Oh, there's not a Deanna. There's a Deanna. Deanna in, Deanna out. You look as tired as I feel, Deanna. No voice. Oh, there we go. Hey, Deanna.
Hi.
I didn't think you'd be able to join us because you were out on the road.
No, I wasn't sure. I literally wasn't sure until just right now.
I was just saying, you look as tired as I feel.
I literally woke up 10 minutes ago.
All right, well,
Hadn't intended to. I'm like,
here you are on the internet forever, streaming. uh, so people are saying your volume's a little bit low. My only control for that is the same one that's Greg's, so I'm gonna turn it up even more. But you guys might blow us all out of the water here.
best.
There you go. How about now?
All right. So on the discussion of darkness devices and who they like and might not like, I'm personally psyched that the cyber page is coming out next because Evan Crutch is such a naughty darkness device.
Awful.
He's got so much stuff that shouldn't be happening.
Right?
So I think I think we're going to sort of start to explore how darkness devices are not homogenous and they have wildly differing agendas, and Evan Crutch is just the outlier.
Yeah.
So,
And I love that mostly came about. It started off kind of like as like just us kidding around internally, and then it kind of stuck. It was like, wait, yeah, no, Ebenestrix is just the weird one. Like it just kind of has fun where the others don't, and that has ramifications that are kind of horrifying in many ways.
Yeah, we're diving into that.
The wait, I'm pretty sure Ebenestrix is making stuff. Isn't that like the biggest blasphemy possible for a darkness device?
He is a total heretic. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not a heretic to its own religion, but like a heretic to the void, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, come on, these things are built to just destroy, to obliterate this stuff. What are you doing making something? And just the fact that you have this immortal ancient machine that's it's like clearly gone mad. Like, oh God, what does that mean for everyone? And can we do it to another one?
You still able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to see what happens if I wanted to go over to here.
Can we get the cyber papacy PDFs for branded on a GodNet flash drive? Ooh. Note that for the marketing. So we're getting the hut with the cybernetic chicken legs. So, and this is the funny thing, right? Like, this is a surprisingly relevant question because we talk about this. So, John Watson, who's working with me on it, he really wants to do something with Baba Yaga. And I was like, I don't really want to do Baba Yaga. Like, I feel like that's really well covered ground. Like, that's the kind of thing that should show up in the Aysle Tharkold mixed zone, where we're bringing legends to life and all that. It doesn't feel right to Tharkold itself, though. Like, we shouldn't have that kind of tie-in. There, like I say, you might have a techno demon that's taking on that, and it's like just decided it's Baba Yaga and is gonna do whatever, but it's a techno demon, from the other realm, just doing its thing. So we'll fight about that. Like, there will be a battle over cybernetic chicken legs, I'm sure, and I'm not sure who's gonna win. So let's see. We got roughly. Oh, let's see. We did that one. Next chance. Any chance the cool PDFs, like Secrets of the Nile Empire, Gear, will be printed? So someday we hope to print the PDF cards that we add to these. We'll want to make them nicer before we do that. Like, they're functional now. Like, they're built to, home print, do whatever. if we were gonna print them as a card deck to sell, we would want to make them nicer. And then it's all, how does that work? Like, where is that in the priorities? Pretty low compared to getting all the year one stuff out. Year two is where we'll start like discussing that seriously, in my mind. Greg, do you agree?
Yeah, I think also we've seen that you can backfill from other columns in Kickstarters. I think stuff like that's going to be a stretch goal in future Kickstarters to say, yes, we can have this stuff in print, and then we don't have to sit around and talk production with the production folks.
Yeah, and then the other things that we can do with those is the returning backer goal, which I like, because we'd switched over in international and so many mechanisms were moving. I wasn't comfortable trying to do that because that ended up like really painful to do for Nile Empire. Like, oh no, it'll be easy. No, it was not easy.
Yeah.
No, doable, but and so here's a funny aside. Like, Greg and I are both work with databases in our previous lives, and all that. So we've got a skill set that many game developers may not have. And I had to fall back on that pretty hard to make that thing work. I was like, I gotta do a query to make this happen and pull this data and da 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 da. Oh, well, I wouldn't make some other poor random, person working in Germany have to do that. Wow, Deanna, we've just got a light bulb, like your camera is pointed at the sky.
Yeah, it's symbolic. Keep not to the promised land.
Dinner and a show. Let's see here. My campaign is a big roster game. 20 plus players. You're insane. Oh my god. 4 to 6 at a time. Okay, that's less insane. Am I asking for?
When I hit that line, I'm like, get more courage than I've got. I can't imagine. It's like, okay, you can't play for the next 3 weeks, Bill. What? It's like,
am I asking for trouble if I relax the unique from our unique races to mean 1 at a time rather than ever? So, do what feels right for you. Like,
yeah, I would say it's unique at the table.
I mean, and honestly, if 2 people were begging to play Stallingers, like, okay, fine. Like, but we just wanted them to feel like they're very rare. And,
right.
And it's funny to me, like, once you add a race as a totally player character race, they're not that rare anymore because you might have 3, at the game. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
doesn't feel rare. So, yeah, like, you can make exceptions. I recommend holding out for alcohol or money from those players that want to double up. Let's see here.
Sorry, I just saw it. Therefore, in a Rorschach it can happen because of law of corruption. You corrupt a GM, you can have more unique races, but other cosms maybe not. Yeah.
GM comes pre-corrupted, everyone. I hate to tell you. Oh, the light. It's the space gods. There you go. Let's see here. Let's see here. What from Classic Torg is relatively safe to pull forward into my Torg Eternity campaign? What is absolutely not wise to pull forward? Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would say probably the realm, at least not my understanding, that we're changing the most is Pan Pacifica. There's all sorts of that corporate stuff you may not want to pull forward from old Torg.
Yeah.
Well, not the rules anyway.
Oh yeah.
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 Right, but like I thought one of the coolest things about that book was all the crazy different corporations and their logos and all that. So they can and should like all exist. It's just a matter like I so
Yeah, I guess it would be anything that does not directly contradict
something in
anything
core.
we've already got is probably safe. Like all the stuff that happened in Isle, like in the Isle source book, all the stuff that they talk about in the cause and all that, I'd say 95% of that is just fine. Like
Yeah.
if it went into Torg Eternity, I don't think it has any issues with what we've got.
Yeah, most of the stuff
Except
that
for blue elves, right?
yeah, except for blue elves, right? Yeah. We were laughing about this like offline where when we were talking about the cracking tails, and I'm reading them like the elves are all blue. I don't remember that at all. And we're like, check. Oh yeah, I guess they were. Son of a gun. We should have been all Avatar with this, but I didn't remember that. Shane didn't. Like nobody remembered that when we were doing the art, and the art looked awesome. So we're like, I guess they're not blue in this version.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest differences is there were a subset of characters who were the transformed into some other race group. And that's
Yes.
just something we're not doing this time around.
Yeah,
So,
we categorically said that doesn't happen this time.
yeah, if you're pulling that forward, then you're going to end up with plot holes.
Yeah, and those were the stories that I had to cut from Cracking Tales were the ones that it was like a major plot point that someone had transformed into one of these fantasy races, and we're like there's a lot of stuff we can nudge around, but that's something we've categorically said does not happen. And the biggest reason that we did that was like the dwarves are rare and dying and all that. And it's like, oh, yeah, about like 1 million humans just turned into dwarves. Well, that problem's solved. But you know, originally we had that kind of transformation available because people want to turn into elves and all that. Like I get that. Like you want elves in play, you want dwarves in play, and then we're like, no, let's lock that down because there's so much of that that's coming from Isle, and we've got a whole army of them marching in. So there'll be times for that. And if you had something like that, I could totally see like the dwarves might switch sides, right? They're like, oh, yeah, we want to invade. Let's get more Isle here because we'll get more dwarves. Like that could be ugly. Like that's actually a cool plot, you know. Joe Mars and Shane took the blue right out of the elves. Yep. Right. Blew them away. But yeah, basically, if we contradict it in the core rule book, that's going to be contradicted. Everything else is pretty safe to import. Like we might get squirrely later on, and like usually what happens is we've got our overall plan, but then something comes up when we're working on the book. So like someone has that idea, that lightning bolt, and we're like, oh, that's cool, let's do it. And if that blows up something, sorry, unexpected, but we're gonna go with the cool idea, like on the day, you know. But for the most part, it should be pretty safe, and it's one of my back burner items. Can we have a sea elf perk? I mean, it's a great idea. We do the exact same perk as the blue spines from Living Land. This is how dead my brain is. I can't even say that anymore.
I'm a strong proponent of reskinning.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why. And honestly, some of those perks, that's why we don't do them. Is like this exists other than like a little bit of flavor text that's different. Like we're not gonna do it all over again. And also, we didn't really have a notion of sea elves either in. Like I think they existed in Original Isle, but they didn't march. Like they didn't come over, so they're not a major factor on Earth. So they're not a major factor on Earth. It's not something we do much with. Could they be later? Absolutely, especially because some of the stellae are underwater.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. And I was also going to say, like, something I've had on the back burner since the original Kickstarter was a conversion guide from old Torg to new Torg. Like, I started messing with it and it got hard, and so I set it aside. Because, you know, it's more art than anything else. Like, most of it, you don't have to do anything to it all. Like, oh, the numbers are just there, they work, you know. But and it didn't feel good like putting out a PDF guide of that, saying like, pretty much just use it and then fudge, you know, that 5% that's different. It's like, I paid 99 cents for this. What, you know? Like, like it needs to be a little more distinct. Like, hey, here's how these old skills map to these new perks, and here's how this works. And that's something I think that bears more effort once we get through all the year one stuff and have all those perks out and that roadmap kind of set. Like, we'll try to do some kind of, you know, some kind of guideline for that to help people out. But
yeah, because that part of the problem is that some of these we don't know how it's going to work out. Like, somebody on the forum just asked recently whether or not we're going to have UltraCAD in Darkhold, and I'm like,
have which what?
UltraCAD?
I don't remember that.
It's, you know, actually, I don't remember the details because it's been a while since I flipped through the Darkhold book, but I know it's in there. I know it does something.
If they're talking about the item makers, like where you'd have plans, and you put the plan in and it would spit out the device, absolutely. Like, I think that's like one of those, like, yeah, that's a Darkhold thing. If they're talking about something else, like, I'll catch up, you know, later. But yeah, like some of those details we work out. Some of the details we have early on, some of them not until the very end. You know, we want to leave ourselves that flexibility.
Some of them are sort of like we know-ish, like we know the rough way it is, but until we step and actually put something to paper and we go, oh wait, that's not going to work.
So, what's for each of us the thing we missed most from Classic Torg that isn't likely to come to Torg Eternity?
Ooh. Well, it's kind of funny because it's sort of like, well, if I miss it from original Torg, I like it.
We just make it work.
Very happy to put it in.
Right? Yeah, like to answer that, we have to think of like avenues that we've completely blocked off, you know, already.
And we've been pretty insistent on not blocking things off unless we had to.
Like, it's all about story, right? If blocking it off creates more story opportunity than keeping it, then absolutely block it off. 9 times out of 10, though, blocking it off is like, all right, this is like a cool, splashy moment that doesn't serve us in the long run, so, you know.
Yeah, it's sort of like if we, like for some of the, I think I'm about to sneeze. If we had said at the outset that there are only 2 abilities that you can do as reality rated people, we would have totally closed off the stuff that we're introducing in When Cousins Collide.
Right?
You know, really, really start to buy into, you know, later. Like there's been several cases where people have asked me about, especially the reality rules, can you do this, can you do that, can you do this? And unless we have to put something to paper, I don't want to. And it's not because, I mean, there's 2 reasons. One is that I don't want to close things off, but the second thing is the more restrictions you put on stuff like that, the more like you're about to tie yourself into knots,
Right.
because it's impossible for us to have a completely consistent and coherent reality that doesn't actually exist in reality. But yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think the thing that I miss is what I'm going to try to, have a small. I miss the Infiniverse newsletter. So, and the interaction there. So if we can get the community more involved with the current Infiniverse, which is what I've been talking to you about, but there's no way to replicate that. It's just too much effort. But I think I do want to I'd like to see some of the pieces of that back in terms of engaging the community. So I'm looking forward to trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, we're working on that. Like, it's not something we've given up on. Like,
right.
Like you say, I've already told you some of the mechanisms that we started with the wiki and the Google map, and it's like we're not pushing those hard, but they're out there, and there's a couple of technical solves that we've got to do to get users into it more.
Right.
That we've been, and it's all about prioritization. Like, there's all this stuff that we want to do and plan to do, but hey, we've got this much team, this many hours. I think it's more important to get these books out first.
Right.
Then we'll get some of the other stuff running. But that can change, especially once the machine's running, essentially. That frees up cycles to work on other things. What's the thing each of you are most excited to bring forward into Torg Eternity, even if you don't know exactly how it's going to happen?
Kind of spoils things, though.
So this is for spoilers, right? You're here. You people are out here at 7 a.m. I don't think we're putting this on YouTube, so spoil away.
Okay. The cautions are coming. They're coming.
Caution's probably mine too. Either cautions or the Komagas.
Yeah, I think it's that the guy who guessed right about making that official reveal on tied together. That one I'm looking forward to, and then yes, the explanation for what happened to the Akashans there, and sort of rolling the way we're opening up the universe heading into year 2. I'm pretty excited about how the possibility wars are different this time around.
Yeah.
What some of the changes are.
Yeah, and like part of it is that we got some reports back from the playtesters for when cosms collide, and the first thing, like within 30 minutes of them, they're like, what? What is happening?
What are we up to? We're going in 20 minutes left. We're at 155 euros by 5. So yeah, we're probably not going to make the tippy top, but that's okay. We're already well beyond what we thought. Did you ever reveal what the Isle Possibility chips do? I think the finalized version was they tie into the Law of Enchantment, and the big thing is you get to pick rather than the GM picking. Like if you're using those, you get to choose the item that gets enchanted and the enchantment that goes on it rather than rolling. And that
I don't think, is that how it works?
I think that is. I think in the latest version that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the last things that we said.
I know what it was. It's that when you get a glory with the Law of Enchantment, I think it was that the player could choose an item to be
right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they choose the item, including non-Isle items. So that's how you get your enchanted 9mm.
I think we made it so that the Eilish player, like if you were from Isle, you could choose, like the player could choose
Right, exactly. And
weren't. It was the GM could
yeah.
go, okay, yeah, I'll accept that one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So we have some questions. Do we have pictures of what the inserts are going to look like? The answer is no. Those are not going to be built, and they're the very last thing to be built in the box. Once we do it for this one, we'll have pictures for what the next one looks like, because within, very slight variations, they're going to be the same kind of insert for all of them. But yeah, anything we do now would be just a drawing, and A, that's actually against Kickstarter policy now, and B, we're just not that confident. We don't know quite how it's gonna look. Just that the printer that does them a lot, so we have absolute confidence they can do it, that it'll work. We just don't know quite how the dimensions and everything scope out. All right. Do you plan on publishing an Infiniverse update like books that update the state of the war so people can choose different timelines from their planes? Greg was just talking about that, so stay tuned. Do you all get to play any tabletop RPGs, Torg Eternity, or others amidst all this creating? I sure do. Both Torg, I run and play a lot of Savage Worlds too, which can be very confusing for me personally because the two game systems, I mean, they share DNA, right? They're cousins, and so I can get really tripped up sometimes using terminology across the two, or using even the same rule in the wrong game. And
yeah, I unfortunately live in a relatively small city, but also my time has been really, really cramped for space lately. So no, I don't get to play. But my go-to game that isn't Torg is 13-page.
We've been doing sort of a revival, nostalgia revival in my groups I've been playing. So we've been doing Traveler, D&D, but now we're also playing like Masks.
Oh
so
yeah,
Masks alternate between new games and old systems. And Torg is pretty much central just because I keep dragging them in. Hey, let's try this. Woo! So.
Cool. I see some suggestions on items for the future, like plastic tubes for the chips. Noted. Will any of us be at PAX Unplugged this year? I'm not. Yeah, so no plans right now, just so everyone knows, this is something we can talk about. The conventions that Ulisses is officially supporting are the ones that Studio 2 is going to. So Studio 2 is carrying all our books. If Studio 2 is going to be at the convention, our stuff will be there, and we will try to send someone. Might not be me or Greg or Deanna, like PAX Unplugged. Might end up being someone like Bill Bridges, supporting Fading Suns, but he would sort of be the Ulisses person. You kind of never know who's available, who's free. We know closer to the conventions and all that, but yeah, look for Studio 2. The ones that we for sure do are Origins and Gen Con. 100% absolutely those two. Everything else, if Studio 2 goes, we will try to send someone. We got like 10 minutes left. What do we got? 13 minutes to go. So now the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking, Storm Knights. Can you elaborate on the mechanics of High Lords collecting and spending possibilities on big stuff? Like making and energizing Stella, dropping bridges, and other large investments.
No. And the answer is not because we don't want to, it's because we don't really have them. Like, we don't have the mechanics. I mean, I remember them doing it in original Torg, but it's all story based. So we just sort of hand wave roughly what they're doing, because part of it is that they're all accumulating large amounts, and we don't want to have them going willy-nilly, dropping milestone bridges all over the place.
Right.
And the reasoning that we say was, well, it's expensive to do that. We don't know how expensive it is because we don't know how much possibility energy they're getting or anything like that. We just know that there is an incentive not to do it.
Yeah. Especially so, and what it comes down to is tabletop practicality, right? If we add a bunch of rules like that, we're telling the GM you need to care about this and like be tracking this. And no, you don't. Like, do what's right for your story. Know that there are costs. So just like Deanna was saying, like the High Lords aren't going completely nuts with it. It's like, oh, there's a withholding factor there. In some version of the Infiniverse, we have a board game that's kind of based on Risk, but has these triangular zones that you place over the world. And the 7 players are all High Lords, and they've all got their own special ability. And more zones you get, the more energy tokens you get, and you can spend your energy tokens to do the things we say. Some universe has that game. Someday it might be our universe, but we're not there yet. If we ever do that, then you will see those mechanics, and it'll be in a macro way. But like that's something I've always wanted to do is like, oh, like have that board game, play out your thing with the High Lords, and then be like, all right, there's your new Torg Eternity universe. Like here's what happens, It's like, nope, Darkhold didn't take hold because we only had 5 players today, Let's see here. What are the details about Atlantis that was referenced on page 39 of the Living Land book? And the post-it note signed by Rayo Rojo. So, that you'll have to stay tuned on that. You'll have to stay tuned on that. So the notion was we've got a lot of ocean that's taken over by the Living Land. We've got Lost Worlds are a thing. And that was actually, so one of the things that we did on that Kickstarter round that we realized is super hard and we should never ever do again was the high tier backers got to add stuff to the book, and we did it, and boy, and that was I had to do some fast tap dancing to figure out how to do that and still make our deadline. And the way we ended up doing it was those cool little post-it notes on the maps that added information, and the backers, some of them like we wrote to fill in gaps, but some of them were done by backers to make comments about their hometown that got destroyed or whatever. And Rojo's, he discovered Atlantis, out in the Gulf of Mexico, I think it was. And it's like, yeah, absolutely, Lost Worlds for sure. Are we gonna do more with that in the future? Stay tuned. Year 2, year 3, maybe not. Lost Worlds are unstable, but it's definitely something added to the canvas thanks to a backer. And that's, to me, like the fun part. The fun part of Torg is it's a conversation, right? Like we might have our ideas, but as you guys post stuff and are like, what about this? We'll be like, yeah, what about that? Okay, yeah. New direction, or why wouldn't this bad guy do that thing? Absolutely. What's the story repercussion of that happening? Let's do that. Let's go there. Like we didn't think of that. we could be cheesy and be like, hey, he didn't think of that either, because apparently it's not that obvious. But if it's pretty obvious, it's like, well, yeah, some advisor is eventually going to be like, dude, why don't you just do this? Okay, yeah, let's see. Let's find out. 7-minute countdown. Let's see. We already did the can an Ord who transforms. Go through it. When and how did the 6 original Rocket Rangers that came to Earth die? What's the ebb and flow of Rocket Ranger numbers like on Earth during the first year? I've got my own answer for this, but I'll let Deanna.
Yeah, I don't know. I just sort of sometimes I will add little details into the background and not fill them. Partly because I just want to throw something out there as a seed to see if somebody grabs it and says, "Hey, that's really cool," and then either asks questions.
Right, and I think the most important. I think that was an important reference to have, because Rocket Ranger is an archetype, and it's a character type, and a lot of people really like the Rocket Ranger suits, like me.
Yeah.
So they're gonna want to play one, and so we kind of needed to establish there's more than one. There's not just the Rocket Ranger. Like there's a group of them. But B, we also had to establish there's not tons of them, right?
Yeah.
Like there's 5 or 6, and they come and they go and whatever. And we want that legacy, like, oh, you pass on the suit to somebody else. So there's not a lot of so that essentially in your game it's open enough to be like, hey, I want to play a Rocket Ranger and I want to be from Terra. Okay, great. That fits. I want to play a Rocket Ranger, but I'm an Earthling and a Terran gave me his suit upon his death. Great, we've got room for that. Like here's kind of the scale that you're talking at. It's not a legion. There's not 100 of these guys. There's just a small handful of them at the beginning, but that's just enough to play with. The kind of hooks that you need or don't need, in my mind.
Yeah.
5 minutes, everyone. We're coming to the end. Right, right after it closes, I'll send the update with the links to the books. We'll talk about that for a minute. And the update's also going to give you guys a little bit of expectation what to expect in the next 4 weeks. The answer is not much from me, but
Yeah, not much for me either.
But the wheels will still be turning. Let's see here. So last one, and this will be a good one for this last 4 minutes. Can you tease any cosms that aren't invaders but have a role to play in the future?
Can we?
My spoiler policy. Spoil it. I mean, clearly the Akashans.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's the big one.
Yeah.
And actually, it was kind of funny because a lot of our year 2 stuff just kind of crystallized, and then crystallizes in quotes, like a week ago. We basically just, on a whim, all 3 of us got together on this.
Right. Yeah.
We just talked for an hour and a half, and yeah, because originally the Akashans were not going to be back as soon as they are. So I have not thought about what I want them to be like yet. But there is.
I have, so we got you covered.
Yeah. I mean, one thought that we had is that the law of the void, which is one of the Akashan world laws, would still apply to the Akashans. So basically, the law of void says that possibility expenditure, you don't get your minimum 10. And the idea there is that the void has got their grips in every Akashan. And so even though, thematically, but it's also different. But it still ties into the bigger picture, which is something where
right.
sort of getting into starting into year 2.
That they're like an entire cosm that's been disconnected and is trying to survive disconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, in this, like, we've got enough material out there. Like, those that are following along and have followed like our Gen Con adventures as we publish them, they've gotten some deeper information on all of that too, in terms of like the cautions. They were here before. They weren't the only ones. We now have the Golden Kingdom from the Nile Empire, which ceded the Egypt that never was, which was in direct conflict with the Akashians thousands of years ago. Like, all this stuff is happening, and they're probably not the only ones. So that's something we can explore as we go.
Yeah.
100 seconds left, everyone. Any last minute bids? Now's the time. But yeah, it looks like we will finish out at 173K, which is, again, fantastic. Unbelievably, ahead of the curve compared to where we thought we might end up on this for the various factors. So thank you all for backing. Thanks for playing. Like, to me, that's the big one. Like, the people play this game. That's the, like, it's one thing to have a book that sits on a shelf, and it's like, oh, we made it, and it's cool. But, the people run with it and do stuff with it. That's what's exciting.
It's still surreal to me.
40 seconds. Any words of wisdom, Greg?
I just think of things that sort of, not so much cosms that affect things, but we're getting a better handle on the interstitial spaces, if you will, the land between, the land below, and how that grows, waxes, wanes, and connects stuff up. But all leading, I think, too, we'll have a really good grasp of the Nexus by the time that rolls around.
Right.
So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. And all the spoilers around the Nexus moving.
Did you guys already talk about that?
Nope. Boom! I see confetti on the Kickstarter. Whee! We have funded. Thank you, Storm Knights. Woo!
Woo! Yay!
Ooh, and we got a last minute little kick up. Somebody jumped in the last seconds. Bravo. Oops, it's in the chat room. 30 seconds. I never knew about the fireworks. Honestly, I've done this like 3 times, and I don't remember the fireworks. So that might be new. That might be new. It might not be. I could just not remember, but... let's see here. Could you please explain in the live session how adding one... Oh, this is... too late. Sorry, everyone. But we'll explain this. So, when we do the Game On backer kit later, you'll have an option to throw in extra if you see like an unlock or something that we added as an add-on that you're like, oh, I want that, and I didn't notice because Darrell was a dumbass and didn't update the picture, or something like that. You can be like, oh yeah, I'll throw that on, and it'll charge you the difference at that time. Also, you might have money next month that you don't have now, so you're like, okay, I'm in on the backer kit, or I'm not even in at all. Like, for everyone that missed it, because that always happens, as hard as we try to let everybody know, there's always, like, I will get an email in 5 minutes, like, there was a Torg Kickstarter and I missed it. Like, happens every time. You can still jump in at the Game On level, where you just won't have anything coming from Kickstarter into Game On to set that, And the big difference is that difference, the stuff that we add in the Game On phase does not retroactively unlock stretch goals. Sometimes we have done it in the past where we said if it was a displayed stretch goal, we'll go ahead and unlock it if we hit that. I think what we'll have to do, like we'll have a powwow with Marcus, and we'll decide if we want to do the map packs anyway. We'll say yes, that will unlock. If not, then no. We'll stick to our original of saying if it doesn't unlock in the Kickstarter, it won't unlock. So don't count on it, but if it appears, that's what we said. We're like, oh yeah, I mean, because the shipping difference will put us way over that like automatically. So, yeah. So let's see, a few more comments roll in. Congratulations. So what is that in money? I can only see euros and sterling is in free fall. For those who display their currency in a different way, the dollar value was, oh, actually it doesn't show me anymore. It was 173,750 was where we landed, which is awesome. The goal unlocks we did by the euros because that's still ended up better. You know, we had it fluctuate the other way like yesterday, and like we were like, oh my god, the dollars just jumped way up. We're like, oh, it's difference in currency, got it. You know, so you never know how that's gonna go. And what we also said at the beginning was we'll unlock whichever one's better. Like if something had changed radically, and dollars had ended up shooting way up, we'd have done that one. Next Kickstarter, we'll do everything in euros because people are right. Like that's the base, that's the one that everyone can see, and then we'll do the approximate dollar value so people can follow along. You know, those majority users. You know, we'll do it that way for that one, and it'll be the same rule. Like if it fluctuates to the point where the dollar one ends up better, we'll take the better one every time because we want stretch goals to unlock. We do. Like that's the whole point. Just do cool stuff. Keep people entertained, you know, during this process where we need 28 days to reach out and get as many people as we can get. All right. Let's see. If you guys chat for a minute, I'll go send the update with the links to everyone.
All right, we can do that. So have you made your destination yet, Deanna? Or are you still in process?
No, well, we're staying in Washington State until Saturday, and then on Sunday we'll fly out to Hawaii and stay there for a week and then fly back. So visiting in-laws.
All right, so you're in vacation midpoint.
Well, yeah. The only reason I actually made this is because I forgot to turn my alarm off on the phone. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna join in the chat. Find out what trouble you guys are making for me.
Oh yeah. I committed you to 3 new projects, Deanna. You're welcome.
Play the over-revealing that game.
Yeah. My favorite game.
Yeah, it is.
Like I say, I feel like it requires a level of effort to come to these chats, you know.
Yeah.
So, like, why would we sit here and be like, "Well, I'm not going to talk about that," you know, and you're like, "Glad I got up for this. Thanks for nothing."
Yeah.
Especially when we want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tougher when it's one that's like, especially when it's like in a gray area where it's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to talk about that yet because I'll put myself in a box that I can't get my way back out of. But
yeah.
But
well,
even
I mean, it's sort of like, what are the captions coming up? I don't know. But now it's like, soon.
Pretty much year 2, yeah. Like. All right, the update went out. Everyone following along. There are links in that update for the Aysle core book, the Aysle source book, The Revenge of the Caradon, the Delphi missions Aysle, and the archetypes for Aysle. There's also a link in there if you see typos, if you see something like conflicting, because sometimes stuff slips through. Like we do our.
Sometimes, always stuff slips through.
It's nicer to say sometimes, right? Because we put a lot of effort into that. Like it.
Yes.
I know it doesn't ever feel like it, but I mean, it's ridiculous. So the core book, people don't know, on the core book, we literally had 10 red line cycles on that.
Yeah.
Like where Kansas Jim went through it and he found like 100 freaking things and we're just like, oh my god, and that was after 5 editors went through it. And then I did a red line and then I found another like 40 things and I'm like, oh my god, And then Shane did his and he found like 60 things and we're like, oh my god, like it just kept going and going and going. And then Matt Cutter did his and he found another 100 things, oh my god. And then we open it up to 1,000 people and they find another 100 things. So it's like, oh. But that, I'm gonna be a project management nerd for a second here. This used to be in another life what I did. Six Sigma, everybody. Six Sigma's a thing. If you don't know what Six Sigma means, bless you. If you do, then you're like, yep, Six Sigma. And it refers to the increasing effort to get decreasing margin of error. Where like to get something mostly good requires this much effort. If you need it to be that much more perfect, it's like double again and double again and double again to where when you're doing something with a zero margin for error, like shooting astronauts into space or something like that, your process that you've got to go through to eliminate those errors is like 100 times more effort than a machine that prints newspapers or something like that. So it's the same in game design where like at a certain level we're like, okay man, we got it as good as we're comfortable with for the level of effort that we want to do. Not that there's not more effort that can be done, but at a certain point you're like, that 10th editor feels like a little bit overboard, especially because yes, they caught something. They caught 10 errors, but we paid them this much to catch 10 errors. Probably not efficient, and that's why we added this cool step of getting these links out to where it's like, okay, it turns out 1,000 people looking at that, that's a level that's one level up on the Six Sigma that and makes a difference in the final product.
Yeah. So somebody recently pointed on the forums an error, and I can't remember if it's
Sphero. There's Sphero.
Yeah.
That's all me. Like I'm the one that misspells that, so that is 100% me.
No, that one is also me. No, it wasn't that one. It was in the core book.
Oh.
So I mean, this is stuff that people have been playing with for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
And nobody's noticed and reported it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I used to be the type of person who would go like, I can't believe these page XX errors, and how could they not? And then once I actually started doing it, I'm like,
right.
I'm never complaining about that ever again.
This is why I like teach everyone how to do that. It's like, okay, now you feel the suffering and
Yeah, in layout too. Layouts are like, now that I've done some of that, I'm like, oh. I don't want to change anything anymore. Because now I got to change the column with every single subsequent page.
Yep. And then that one time you don't, and then it gets through, and you're just like, oh God, what if we just published? No.
Yeah.
Well, my theory of Torg typos is that actually words are words. They transform after we think they're done. And so we're just going to spontaneously generate a few more typos as the document, lives on.
It does, and where most of it comes from, and here's where I got to give a shout out to our editors, because they'll legitimately catch 99.9% of the stuff. But then what happens is we'll get a playtesting feedback or something like that, and be like, oh, I need to tweak the wording on this. And then when I tweak the wording on it, I have introduced a new error that wasn't there when the editor looked at it. And we try before the end to get that back to them and be like, here are the things that change, rather than having them go through the whole document again. But if we change 2 words, it's like, oh, whatever, I couldn't possibly have made a spelling error in the 2 words that I changed. Turns out I did, because I'm a dumbass or whatever. Like, that's how it happens.
Yeah, actually the one that I have the hardest time dealing with, and part of it is because there's only a few people that would even realize there was an issue, is when we change something in one part of the text that is referred or at least mentioned in somewhere else in the text, and we don't change that part. And because I remember there's one section in the core book with I think it was the reality rules, where there's one part where it's just flat out wrong. It won't change.
Yeah.
But it was like in the introduction, and so it's like,
our composer's in the chat room too. Hey, Ralph. That's a live chat I should have done. We should have done one for the music next time.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, mine, the one for the core book that kills me, absolutely kills me. So there's a typo on the back cover.
Oh yeah.
Kills me every time. Just a tear streams down my face every time I see it. It's like, we did all this effort, 10 runs through everything, and then like the very first sentence that you read is just messed up. It's like, oh no, no.
I blame Evan Express.
Yeah, right. Darkness device got a darkness device.
It is a rat bastard. And he is really fun. I can't wait to see what people. Yeah.
So at Gen Con, they're doing a LARP set in the cyber papacy.
Oh God.
So I'm gonna get them some stuff, and I can't go to the whole thing. If I could have gone to the whole thing, I would have been like, so traditionally the role that I play in these is Ebenezer Crux. I am the voice of the darkness device. I would love to be part of that, LARP, and just be like, yep, I'm a darkness device. Whatever. Who wants to be my new High Lord? We can talk.
So playing the rat bastard, that's not role playing for you though.
That's true. I am 100% evil, everyone. Evil, mean, vicious, nasty, and cruel. Who else? On a backer game, would literally design the adventure to kill everyone. Here's our super fans. They paid to be here, and I'm gonna murder you all. Who does that? Now they were fine. They survived, most of them, but they came through spectacularly. But yeah, evil, mean, vicious, nasty, and cruel. That's me. Right explains the evil chuckling on Saber Dice. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right, Omar. Yeah, absolutely. I took great pleasure when they were like, yeah, we're going to fight Thratch. And I'm like, okay. Well, this just got a lot more fun for me. Y'all are going to die. Yeah, they were asking for it. They were, and they got it. And you guys got, but on the bright side, you guys got to see some Thratchin stats early, way early. I saw someone pointed out a typo on the archetypes already. Great. There's a form for that. Please use it. Like that's, and that, the two reasons why we put them out is one, instant gratification, right? Like we just took your money. It's gonna be months before the real stuff comes out, but you got something like right now, and you can play it. Like it's there. Like you can play with it. It doesn't have the cover on it. Doesn't have the index on it. Sorry, but it does have bookmarks because as we get better technically in terms of our tools, like I don't have to depend on someone else to build those anymore. Like it used to be, we would export a file and they like someone else would add the bookmarks after, and that was an extra step. Now I can just do them my damn self, so you'll always have bookmarks even on a preview file. Um, but um, the one, it's that instant gratification, and two, we've got time before these books go to the printer. So if people find stuff, if 1,000 people, 2,000 pairs of eyes find things that 20 pairs of eyes didn't, we've got it. We can fix it before it's set in paper forever. Because I'm not a big believer in errata. I mean, I know it exists. Like, I know we have to have it, for those that follow it. But as a player, I never follow errata. It's like my book says this, so that's what I'm doing. And if it matters enough, okay, I'll bother. But 90% of the time, it's like doesn't really matter. If this is that broken, it's mostly because of players abusing it, and that's a discussion with the player. Like, hey, how about lay off that a little bit? If not, I'll use the errata hammer. Stop it. That's usually what we reserve it for. Is that okay? More like this is happening enough out there that we need to say something and do something. But in general, and poor Deanna's like, errata's my life, and you've just completely undercut me. Thank you so much.
No, I don't like it either. I just have a larger
investment in it. Well, I mean, that's
investment in it, yeah. And not only that, but I'm the one who's seeing all the, hey, what about blah 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 blah. I'm like,
the answer is no. Just no.
Yeah, like telekinesis, I'll be honest, I would really like to get a new one of those for Darrell.
What? Well, noted. Because, like, here's the thing, though, right? Like, telekinesis has to be there.
Oh, yeah.
No, right? Like, you have to be able to do it. And and we wanted to keep it pretty simple, right? And it's like, hey, look, everything you can do as telekinesis, you could do if you just freaking reach out and grab the person. And people are like, oh, but what about this? What about this? Like, you're overthinking it, right? Like, but if I could do this, then I can do this. Can you do that with your bare hands? No, then you freaking can't do it. Stop it, It's like, yeah, you can do it at range, but, my only regret mechanically was that we let you lift yourself. I think that should have been a separate power.
Yes. Yeah. That was sort of ultimately my big issue.
Yeah, there was but I liked, I don't know if, so in the Nile backers, one of the powers that we added, as a backer power was the limited self-flight that was quicker to activate, and like I really like that. Like as a different variation, great. But the whole reason that we allowed it was we had that discussion. It's like, look, if you can lift stuff, why can't you lift yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess you can. Fine,
I mean, the part of it is too is that it felt like it took up so much of the design space for what is 1/3 of the psionic ability.
Right.
And even though there's like pyrokinesis and all that, it just sort of like, well, what's left? Like I mean, it's sort of like, it almost made sense for the core book because it was going to be a long time.
That's just it. I mean, we have to cover those bases. Everything, and that's the fun when we get to the source books is, all right, what did we miss? Like, what are people asking for that we missed? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's some of it. And also, now let's get creative, right? Like, all right, we thought we covered telekinesis, but really thinking about it, what wacky stuff, part of it is it's a cinematic game. My go-to is movies. I was talking with John Watson, I'm working on with Thorkold, and we were talking about psi powers, and I told him, for cinematic psi powers, push, Firestarter, scanners. Like, you've got to be familiar with those three to get cinematic psionics.
Yeah.
There's others, but like those are the top three. And part of our design process is go back and watch those and be like, what did we miss? Like, oh, somebody just did something there that we're not covering,
Yeah, and one of the things that sort of like it's always been cognizant about source book material, and partly with as a sort of a response to people worrying about power creep, is that often by the time we've done 2, 3, 4 source books, we know how things work now. Like or the best way to do like these powers. Like there are several powers in there that I would just go like, I mean, they don't need big changes. It's not broken, but
mind control is broken. Like that's that's the one errata that'll be like, yeah, that one was broken. Like, like it worked in the day, but then there was like all these edge cases that they added up. So it's like, okay, yep, we blew it on that one. We'll fix it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a couple of ones that like spells or powers that have concentration that really shouldn't, or things that seem like they should be combat powers but aren't, or they're not combat powers but are, that sort of thing. Like I just would not write them that way anymore at all.
Yeah.
But most of those, it doesn't matter too much as long as you don't take too close of a look at it.
Right.
The one that, what was it? Pathfinder was, I think, the one that we recently kind of went, how does that actually work?
Yeah. Well, but it's supposed to be like it has to be loose, right? They've got to be broad enough to allow certain amounts of storytelling, but at the same token, and this is a design philosophy question, that you and Greg might even disagree with, but for me,
no, we always agree on that.
Right? Like where I tend to check out is if you're building your abilities around all the negatives, right? To try and like tighten it down to like, well, here's the one and only thing that you can do with this. It's a boring power.
Yeah.
Like it's just super boring. And I think that, and I get why you have to do that. If you're in any kind of a tournament space, absolutely. If you're in any kind of a competitive, organized play, absolutely. We're not that.
It's my home game.
Yeah, like we're absolutely not that. Like, and I want to, and this is part of the DNA that we share with Savage Worlds, right? Is Savage Worlds attracts a certain kind of player that goes onto the table and is kind of like, yeah, okay, let's have fun with this. And I just got murdered. All right. And Torg's not quite the same, but like we want that crossover that, like, if you're super worried about that, you need to relax. we as a game system want you to step back from that ledge just a little bit, because I get it. And for some games, it's totally critical. But in my mind, I never want that to be critical for Torg. Like I want the GM to be able to be like, all right, no, banhammer, moving on. Or, like you've spent one of your 3 spells on Pathfinder. It's useful. It's as useful as Fireball, right? Like it's not like, well, You can only use Pathfinder if you already know all the information. Well, glad I bought that spell.
Well, yeah, the issues that we were having with that was, can it instantly solve?
Ooh, Odd Thomas. Sorry, someone in the thing pointed out Odd Thomas for cinematic psi powers. Good one. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, if we had something where, because the question that Greg was asking was, can we say, take me to Paul's murderer, and then it's sort of like, well, that basically kills every single mystery story at that point.
Right.
Like, there are no mysteries in Aisle because somebody will have Pathfinder cast it, and you will be found guilty very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, but it also doesn't make sense, right? Like,
Yes, but we had to figure out why that was, because Pathfinder was. It was one of those things. It was space, and it worked, but it needed a little bit more room to breathe on that one.
Right.
Like, we didn't have to specify everything.
Yeah. Well, I think just saying, like, you can't have variables, right? It's like,
right.
I'm searching for X, where X equals murderer.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
If you want to find Paul, there you go. But
and also a lot of the times we do things where we just leave it up to GM. We literally say the GM decides this because it is possible for us to write a rule that will cover everything.
Right. Yeah, we could literally fill a book with Pathfinder variations and rules.
Yeah. And
I don't want to read that book.
Like the gizmos in the Nile Empire. It's just like the possibilities on that, are huge, and it's just like at some point you have to take advantage of the fact there is a GM.
Yeah.
That is part of the game, and it's sort of like.
And it opens design space where if people are like, I want more on this, okay, cool. Someday we'll do a gizmos book, and here's a list of 100 pre-done gizmos, and here's 16 pages on very specific things about building them.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that would be cool. Like, that would be valuable. Should we start wrapping this up, everybody?
Probably.
Everyone's got books to chew on. Hopefully they're reading those rather than listening to us anymore.
Nobody's listening to us anymore. They're reading PDFs.
Yeah. Right? And I'm gonna leave the feedback open a lot longer than usual, just because I'm gonna be away between Gen Con and RatCon in Germany. I'm not gonna be able to look at it. We've got other files to work on. So before we were trying to get a very rapid turnaround to get to the printer. We've built more space in the schedule this time, so we're going to use that space.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us, for the Kickstarter, for everything, for keeping Torg alive. It's freaking great. Those of you that I'll see at Gen Con, see you at Gen Con.
Yeah, thanks also. This is the first Kickstarter I've seen the making of the sausage, as it were. So I have the appropriate amount of fear and respect now.
Yummy sausage.
Sometimes fear is the appropriate response. Long live Cronod. Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. Cronod's powerful but lazy. He doesn't like to do anything himself. That's all I'll say on that. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and kill the stream. See you on the comments. If we're not commenting fast, it's because Gen Con. We're all buried, so.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.